Americans were fooled into believing that the legal crown colonies comprising New England were independent nation states, but they never were, and they aren't today. They were and still are colonies of the Crown Temple through letters patent and charters. And they don't have no legal authority to be independent from the rule and order of the Crown Temple. The legal state is the Crown Temple colony. And that's why the New York City became the Crown Temple's jump-off point and their base of operation, and that's why they're still there today. So, the people of America, Queen of England, Britain, they don't own America. And the Crown Temple owns America through the deception of all those who swore an allegiance to the Middle and Templar Bar. The Crown bankers and the Middle Templar attorneys ruled through America all the contracts, all the unlawful taxes, and all the contract documents of false equity through debt deceit, and they're all strictly enforced by their completely unlawful but legal orders, rules, and codes of the Crown Temple. So our so-called judiciary in America is none other than Crown Temple pawns.
Did you find anything where anybody resisted this or was very, very vocal?
No. And the reason why is it was so much of a fraud and so big that the people just didn't get it. They didn't know what was going on.
Well, let me just stop you right there. What you just said, is that not exactly the condition in which we find ourselves right now?
Exactly, yes. Because the people see all this Patriot Act being put out there and all these other things that are going on, Homeland Security, and they ain't complaining. In fact, they're jumping on the bandwagon and say, oh, we need more of it. I'll give up more of my liberties just to be safe. Well, they have given up so much of their liberties that they ain't safe.
But here again, if you can make something big enough, it's everybody thinks a conspiracy or some plan has to be small, minute.
Right.
But the
no,
thing is,
it can be such a big thing, and you tell a lie long enough, everybody believes it.
But actually, the bigger it is, the better. Because if you're in an elevator with an elephant, you really probably don't know what you got yourself into.
That's right.
All right.
Now, let's go back to 1776. Here's an old Latin maxim and Roman expression. Whoever owns the soil owns all the way to the heavens and depths of the earth. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in 1776, that's what, like Roosevelt in the World War, the bombing, is that will truly live in infamy for all Americans. That's the year the Crown Colonies became Crown States. All right, the Declaration of Independence was legal, it wasn't lawful. It was signed by both sides of the representatives of the Crown Temple. Legally announced the status quo of the Crown Colonies to that of the new legal name called States, as direct possessive estates of the Crown. That's why I had mentioned earlier in the last show, see the definitions to understand the legal trickery that was done. So the American people right then was hoodwinked into thinking they were declaring lawful independence from the Crown. Proof that the colonies are still in Crown possession is use of the word state to signify a, quote, legal estate of possession, unquote. In other words, if you go back and look up estate, you will find even in Black's Law Dictionary that it is now taken on the term state. All right. Had this been a document of and by the people, both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution would have been written using the word states. By use of state, the significance of a government of an estate possession was legally established. If you go back in again and look in the 1788 Virginia debates, when Patrick Henry said, I'm paraphrasing now because I don't have the exact thing in front of me. What right do you have, talking to the commission, to say we the people when it should be we the states? And he said that twice in there. And anybody can pick up I think it was June 4th to the 8th in the Virginia debates of 1788. And you can pick it up. Maybe it might be on the internet. I don't know. But you'll see in there exactly what he said. So all the constitutional rights are simply dictated by the Crown Temple and enforced by the Middle Temple, which are bar attorneys, through their franchise and corporate government entity, aka the federal United States government. Now, when a state citizen, and I'll put that in capitals, attempts to invoke his constitutional, natural, or common law rights in chancery, their equity courts, he is told they don't apply. So we all know that. Why? Simply because a state citizen has no rights outside the rule and codes of the Crown law, because only a state citizen has natural common law rights by a paramount authority of God. Now, it might sound confusing. I just use state citizen two different ways. It's the capitalization that does it. So, the people that compromise the citizenry of the state are recognized only within natural and common law as already established. That'd be God's law. Only a state citizen, now I capitalize it, can be a party to an action within a state court. A common state citizen, I'm going to say instead of state citizen, inhabitant, cannot be recognized in that court because he doesn't legally exist in Crown Chancery courts. In order to be recognized by the state courts, a common man must be converted to a corporate entity. That's why they have a legal fiction called a person. And you go and look in the Informer site and look up person. And that is the best definition that I could find from legal sources of what a person is. And a person is not in law the physical man. So now you know why they created the entity using all capital letters within birth certificates issued by the state. They convert the common lawful man to a person of a fictional legal entity subject to administration by state rules, orders, and codes. All right, because there's no law within any rule or code. It's not a law, it's just a rule. Of course, rules and codes don't apply to the lawful man of the Lord, if you want to say. But he must be converted to a legal person of fictional status because they're a fiction to begin with, and fictions can only deal with other fictions. They can't deal with a man, a physical state that he's in.
So you can't cross. There's no interrelationship between the two.
Right.
That's at least recognized.
Right.
Okay.
Nothing is recognized. So the Chancery courts are the Crown courts, where the decisions of so-called justice are decided by 3 judges. It's a direct result of the Crown Temple having invoked the rule and code over all judicial courts. Every judicial court in this country is not anything to do with this country. It's done with the Crown. It's held by the Crown. Here's a quote. It is held to be a settled rule that our courts cannot take notice of any title to land not derived from the state or colonial government and duly verified by patent. 4 Johns, Rep. 163, Jackson v. Walters, 12 Johns, Rep. 365, SP. So, the Crown Temple granted letters patent and charters for all the land and all the colonies in New England, and the King of England, a sworn member of the Middle Temple, as the Queen is now. Since the people were giving their patent charter corporations, the governors of the colonies had a hard time, especially concerning the Crown taxation. And a scheme was devised to allow the Americans to believe they were granted independence. Remember, the Crown Templars presented both parties at the 1776 Declaration. And not only there, but to the Treaty of Peace. Every one of them was an esquire that signed it. So you got one party signing both sides, don't you? Is that legal?
If they say it is.
Yeah, they say it is, right. Yeah, that's under conquest. That's why they say it is.
Right. They make the laws.
Now, the reason they had that declaration was recognized by international treaty law in order to establish the new legal crown entity of the Incorporated United States Middle Templar King George III agreed to in the Treaty of Paris. Quote, between the Crown of Great Britain and said United States. Well, wait a minute. The Crown of Great Britain is the same as the Crown of the United States. So there's the agreement right there that is totally a total fraud. So, most important is the actual signatories of the Treaty of Paris. Like I said, they were all esquires. So, this legally signifies officers of the King's Court, which are now known as Templar Courts or Crown Courts. So this is the same Crown Templar title given to Alexander Hamilton. So, all the unlawful taxes and all the contract documents of false equity through debt deceit, and they're all strictly enforced by the completely unlawful but legal orders, rules, and codes of the Crown Temple. So, our so-called judiciary in America is none other dependent from the rule and order of the Crown Temple. The legal state is the Crown Temple colony. And that's why the New York City became the Crown Temple's jump-off point and their base of operation, and that's why they're still there today. So, the people of Americans were fooled into believing that the legal Crown colonies comprising New England were independent nation states, but they never were, and they aren't today. They were and still are colonies of the Crown Temple through letters patent and charters. And they don't have no legal authority to be than Crown Temple pawns.
Did you find anything where anybody resisted this or was very, very vocal?
No. And the reason why is it was so much of a fraud and so big that the people just didn't get it. They didn't know what was going on. America, Queen of England, Britain, they don't own America. And the Crown Temple owns America through the deception of all those who swore an allegiance to the Middle and Templar Bar. The Crown bankers and the Middle Templar attorneys rule through America all the contracts,